So let's dive into Saving Abel now. Do you remember the first time hearing Saving Abel's music? So this is long before you became a member.
Yeah, I was in a Walmart parking lot in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
It's always in a Walmart parking lot, you know?
Yeah, and somebody was coming around the corner, and I was hanging out with my aunt at the time, and her friends or whatever. I was really young, man, and I just remember hearing 18 days coming out of somebody's pickup truck, and then I just remember the melody, and I never forgot the melody like to that song. And then fast forward, um, I would be getting ready for school in the morning and I'd have TV on and like it I remember the order too. It was like uh Saving Abel would come on at like 7 roughly, and then like Devour by Shinedown would come on, and then like somebody else. But I just remember those two bands like being on at the same time every morning. And I just remember like seeing Jared's face on MTV and just hearing it like passively in the morning when I was getting ready. So yeah, so I guess yeah, like a pickup truck in Mississippi, and then and then MTV.
Well, speaking of Jared, he sent in some kind words. Jared Weeks, original Saving Abel vocalist, he says, Dave Moraata is the effing greatest. I'm censoring it here. The greatest ever. Moraata for life. Uh, Fist pump emoji. So that's from Jared.
Yeah, that sounds like him, and I'm the same way. So yeah, Jared's the man. So you know,
And what was it about Saving Abel that made you a fan? So you heard 18 Days, but then, there's other singles, maybe you got an album, maybe is do you remember what kind of allowed the band to sink its teeth into you at some point?
yeah, I heard Drowning Face Down, and that was like this really like I don't know, it was kind of southern. It sounded like a really really polished Leonard Skinner, and like me being from the South, it was like I don't know, it made me feel good, and that was kind of a feel good tune anyway, So it like I don't know, kind of I it gave me hope, I guess. I've come too far to turn around, so I heard it and was like, man, this is just so inspirational. Like, I wasn't like to be honest, like I love playing all those songs, but like uh their biggest hits didn't resonate with me like all the rest of them. So like when I heard the rest of their music like later on when I would dive into their albums, I was super, and I'm still like super opinionated on a lot of things in music, which I probably shouldn't be, but I guess it's just passion. But that third record is just slept on. Like people need to dive into that one.
And
So I guess it was just learning the songs and getting into it, and I was just like, wow, this is great music. What? How come none of these are hits? Like, so
and and do you when you play the songs with the band now, and it's the songs that you remember first hearing just as a fan, the 18 Days, the Drowning, do you feel a certain kind of way playing them when there's that young kid still inside you that was just a fan being like, do you have that moment where you're like, oh my God, like this is the band I would hear before going to school? And wait a minute, I'm on the drum kit with this band now. Do you ever have this kind of weird, not deja vu, but you know what I'm saying? This kind of weird moment.
well, yes, I do, but I also have to like I have a hard time sometimes like separating work from fun. So like yeah, I make sure that I'm playing them right and doing them justice. But yeah, sometimes when I play them, like depending on where they are in the set list, I can project what I feel out of them, and I guess that's just kind of like the best way I can put it is like the way those songs make me feel, I try to make everybody else feel that way too. So I try to put that energy that I feel from them out. And that's kind of been like my whole thing playing music forever is like, if this song makes me feel a certain way, I'm going to try my best to make it feel like it should so that you can feel what I feel. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
So,
it was 18 days that you heard first. For
yeah.
me, I remember, man, their first single when they released "Addicted." Such a monster hit. I remember
Yeah.
the single on the radio. I remember the music video. I actually went out and bought that album in 2008. And
Well,
"Addicted," 18 days. Those were my favorite singles. But then the album cuts, "Sailed Away" and "Beautiful Day" were my two favorite songs that weren't singles from that album. Do you guys ever play those two songs in the live show?
no.
No, I'm just gonna
I
be honest. No.
no. So I cut when I first joined the band, I had to do like an essentials record for 'em. I cut Beautiful Day in the studio, but when I joined the band, they were already of the mindset of like, we want to be heavier.
Mm.
So we don't want to play any of these ballads, really. Like,
I'm a softie for a good ballad, which is why those are two of my favorites. But I
yeah,
understand wanting to bring the thunder live.
yeah. Well, they like I'd already had like an aggressive ear for music and was more of an aggressive player. So they were like, I don't know, we kind of tailored the set on what everybody was feeling. And like we pretty much we kind of started from 2013. Like when I first joined the band, we played most of the third record first. Like we finished it off. Like we were playing songs on that record that like they'd never really played live, you know. Um, or if they did, it was short lived because they, Jared wanted to finish that. He wanted to get all of that out of that album first. So we were playing songs like we opened with New Loser, which is a banger. And then what else did we play on that? We played like Bittersweet and Me and You, and
There's
we
lots of
were
bangers on that third album.
oh yeah, dude, that album is so slept on. But yeah, that we were just kind of completing that. So really and truly, that those first album ballads and like second album ballads, like we didn't get to them. We just played the heavy tunes off of those albums. So the ballads were the third record albums. Like that. The third record, it's got like pictures of Elvis, and we had pictures of Elvis in 18 days already in the set, and then everybody was like, "That's it. Like that's the only ballads we're doing, man."
Did I am I crazy or did I see that Saving Abel, you guys did some acoustic shows? Um, did you ever do acoustic shows or am I making that up?
No, my first show was an acoustic show.
Okay, so in the acoustic shows that lends itself more towards maybe some ballads, you still wouldn't those songs still wouldn't make it?
Yeah. Well, let's see. Acoustic shows. I think we would do, yeah, 18 pictures. But then like also we would arrange some of those songs to kind of sound more, ballady, I guess.
Okay.
And then the drum set I would use would be like a pancake bass drum, a snare drum that's, got a bunch of muffling on it or whatever, some jingle rings or something. And I would use like, hot rods or brushes or whatever, to kind of make it feel kind of like we wanted to kind of do the unplugged 90s like Alice in Chains thing. So we would treat some of those songs like that too. So it was never really like big ballads during that, but we would take some of the songs and turn them into them.
And here's
So
the big question. How did the opportunity present itself to actually become a member of Saving Abel?
so I do like a lot of jam nights in town all the time. I'm a busybody. I love being in my car. So I always do jam nights as much as I can. Like I'm a forever learner. So like anytime the opportunity presents where I can play a song that I don't know anything about, I'll do it. Um, so there was like a new metal night or whatever. Ironically, I had to play a Taproot song that night. I played Poem, and I also played Engine Number 9 by Deftones. So immediately that was the first jam night I ever played where I knew the songs, so I didn't have to worry about much. Um, Well, we had a rehearsal, like a group rehearsal for the jam night, which is super rare. Most of the time, you just get up and do them, you know. So, um, I showed up to this rehearsal or whatever, and they were going through the list of songs that had to be performed, and Mud Shovel was one of them. And this kind of all ties it together. So most of those guys in that room still hang out together. So the bass player on that song was Matt Dice, who at the time I think he had just departed from CKY, but he plays for All That Remains now. And he is one of my closest friends. He did some touring with us and Saving Abel. I think the world of that guy, man. And there's another guy named Jeremy Barber, who is also one of my greatest friends. He is now the guitar tech for Three Doors Down. And he's another one of those guys like me. He just shows up to jam nights and does them as much as possible. And we get to see each other and hang out. There was another fellow in the room. It was a fellow drummer in Nashville named Jack Ivins. He's cool. He played guitar on it, and Jared Weeks was singing that song. Well, John Wysocki didn't know that there was like a time limit or like a specific time he had to be there. But they were running through the set list and they were like, man, we got to get Mud Shovel out of the way because, this guy's got to leave and this guy doesn't have time. And like, we got to do this song now if we're going to run it. Everybody's here. So it's like, does anybody know Mud Shovel on drums? And my buddy Jeremy was like, yeah, Dave's got it. Let Dave play it. So at the time I was like, yeah, sure, I'll get up and do it. So I got up, I sat down behind the drums and I seen all those guys there in front of me. And I felt really comfortable because I knew all of them. Like I knew I'd played with Matt several times. I played with Jeremy a lot. Like Matt and Jeremy had kind of played in little groups together around town. So it was super comfortable. There was no nervousness at that at all. And then I saw Jared, obviously, and he was in front of me. He didn't know who I was at all. So I counted off the song, we played it, and then John came in a little later, and then he played it, and then they went home. And I just remember kind of like having some small talk with Jared. It wasn't much. He was ready to go home. He didn't really want to be around all those people. So,
And did you
you
know
know,
that he was the singer for Saving Abel at that point?
yeah, yeah. But we were just kind of talking, hanging out or whatever. And the next night when we went and played the show, I got up and did Poem. John showed up and did Mud Shovel, obviously. I did Poem, and Jared and I just kept talking. We just kept on like hanging out and just kept on talking in the back room. And then I got up and did Engine Number 9. Well, that was the last night or the last song of the night. I'm sorry, because the Deftones band played the song. Ironically, I play in that band now around town. So like I got the gig essentially. Basically, I got two gigs in one night. Like I think so.
That's
I
a good
played.
night at the office, eh?
Yeah, and I remember looking to my left and seeing my friend Jack Gibson, who plays bass for Exodus, who's been a phenomenal mentor and just like one of the coolest people, man. And Greg Upchurch, which is the drummer from Three Doors Down, he's also been another one of those guys that's been just like the best. Like if you got a question, just ask him and he just shoots you straight, which is great. And Jared was standing there. So all three of them were watching me play, right? And I got off the stage and Jared was like, cool, man. I stuck around to watch you, good drumming, dude. And he went home. And a couple of weeks later, Jeremy texted me and was like, hey, remember that guy, Jared Weeks? I'm like, yeah, man. He's like, well, he's putting a solo band together and he needs a drummer. Can I tell him about you? I said, sure. So he told him, and then Jared hit me up and he goes, hey, Jeremy put in a good word for you. I liked your drumming. I remember it clear as day when I first heard you play. And I know I've seen you play a few times and I like it. So you're my kind of drumming, is what he said. And I said, okay, cool. He said, how much Saving Abel do you know? And I said, well, I know a few of them. I'd kind of listened through some tunes, over the years, I guess. And so I learned the songs, and then we played this thing called Hello TV, which was a live performance, like on camera. So, lots of pressure. You only got one time to get the song right, and you're under cameras. I can't watch that video to this day because I was playing some of the parts all wonky. So
And
I
it's
just
hard
can't.
because there's no like crowd energy, right?
Yeah, that and it was just, everything was under a microscope and like my playing is so much different now from than it was then. And we did that. I'm grateful for it because I got to make some friends out of that too. Um, and then we just, the pandemic hit, so we didn't have nothing to do. So we just kept hanging out. He's like, you want to come over to my house and eat dinner? So I just go over his house and I'd eat dinner. We just kept talking, and just one thing led to another. And we just became friends. And then he goes, I went to one of his little acoustic shows up here in Murfreesboro where I live. And we were out back talking or whatever, just chatting it up. And he's like, man, I've been talking to the guitar player a little bit from Saving Abel. And I'm like, oh, cool. It's like, I think we might do something. Cool. I didn't think anything of it, man. And one thing led to another. And it was like, it happened real fast. It was like within a couple of weeks, I was receiving another phone call and he was like, hey, I'm going to join the band and I want you to be the drummer. And I was like, all right. And it didn't even click with me. I was just like, okay, cool. And I guess I'm doing this. Like, it was just, I don't know. I went into like work mode. So I didn't really like get, I didn't really soak it in. Like, I didn't freak out or nothing. It was just kind of like, oh, time to go to work. I've been playing in Nashville for a long time and, 3 years at that point. I'm trying to get a professional gig. So, like, you need to act professional. So that's what I did. And then he asked me to play on a record for them first. So it was this thing called the Essentials album, and which was just all of their hits, everything that had ever charted, I guess, and like maybe one or two that they just liked. So I went into the studio with the original producer and I tracked the album first before I was in the band to see if I could hang in the studio. And I guess I could hang in the studio. So um, here I am. But I did about 9 songs in like 4.5 hours. So it was quick enough to where they were like, okay, so he's competent in here and he kind of understands how this stuff works. So it was enough for them to get me over in it. And then they announced me in the band before I ever played with them. So it was like press. What was crazy about it was there was like press everywhere about it, and I was like, I haven't even played with these guys yet. So I guess the studio was just enough for them to be cool with it. And then, man, I just kept going. I've been doing it ever since. I played on 2 albums with them. I played on one song that was a top 40 active rock song. It was like number 27 or something with them. So I played on one top 40 with them and then just the rest of the record. So 2 records actually. So yeah.
So before you joined the band, they had already released 4 albums, an EP. They had 15 singles. They had a platinum album with their debut. They had a platinum single with Addicted. What were the challenges of joining a band that had already achieved that much success?
There wasn't any.
No?
No. I don't mean to sound cut and dry, but there weren't any challenges because I was already prepared. Like I knew, like I didn't know how that worked, but I guess, you know, all I could think about was like, I have to get this right. I cannot screw this up. So like even going in there and cutting the album, like it was so weird. I was just numb the whole time. I was just in work mode. I practiced a lot. I locked myself in a room and learned all the songs and like that was my job for like a month straight was learning those songs every single day. So like for 5 or 6 hours a day, I would just play those songs over and over again until I got them perfect before I presented them. So no, like it wasn't much of a struggle. It didn't become a struggle until I found out that like mental issues exist, which was like way later.
So would you say you were more excited to be joining a successful band more so than you were nervous or overwhelmed or any of those other things?
Yeah, at first for sure. Like I was just like dedicated. Like I was just ready to do whatever they needed me to do. And like, I had definitely put my nose down and went forward. So I didn't second guess nothing. I just did it. And I didn't there was no like weird worry or nothing. It was just there. And it didn't hit me that I was even in the band until like 5 months after we started touring. Like I stepped out in front of my first like big crowd, and they were there and they were ready. And I was like, wow, this is big. This is really big. And they're like, yeah, dude, this is like a day at
This is
work.
this is what we do. Was that a
Yeah, this is
festival
like normal.
or
Do what?
was that a festival? Do you remember that first big show?
Yeah. Yeah, I do actually. It was I think Adelita's Way, the band Adelita's Way, they had to drop because they were going out with, I want to say like Skillet or something. They had a big tour with them. I can't remember. It was one of those big rock bands, but they dropped and they put us on a festival like last minute. And God, I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but I don't care. I mean, all music, the entire music industry is just a great learning curve that I'm just excited to be a part of. But I remember we jumped on a bill with them, and it was like Saliva, Buck Cherry, us, and then like a couple other bands, I think. But it was a fairly decent sized festival, like we're enough to where the crowd was like you could you could feel them move the music around. Does that make sense? So I got done with that, and I was like, I just remember these people yelling at me, like, can I have a drumstick or like whatever? And I never experienced anything like that. I didn't know what an exit sign was till I was like 18. Uh, so I was just kind of dumbfounded, like, why do these people want my drumsticks? Like I didn't know what any of that meant because I'd been so busy just like trying to be perfect, like on the drums that I never really knew like that side of it. So I turn around and I'm like looking at my tech, and my tech's like, he's like, all right, you can leave now. I got the drum. I'm gonna tear them down. You can go get a shower, go to bed or whatever. I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, go do your thing, man. And I just remember grabbing some chipped up sticks. I threw them out there, and it just like the crap, they all moved towards me a little bit more. So I just went and got out on the PA speaker and jumped out in the crowd like a freaking idiot. Like I just I just jumped smooth over in there, and they caught me, and I was like, this is wild.
The Holy Spirit took you over in that
Yeah, I
moment.
guess. Like I was just like, I bet I can jump in there. I don't know what happened. I just thought,
It
man,
it,
I could
it
jump.
works every time but the last. Yeah,
Yeah, it works.
if the
Yeah.
sea opens up at the wrong time, it's the last
Oh
time we
yeah,
do
they
it.
were. Yeah, and then it dawned on me that this is probably a lot more than I thought it was going to be. And then in my, it just kind of changed my brain chemistry on my outlook and stuff on it. So, which today I'm incredibly grateful for because I got to learn some of the best experiences ever. I learned so much. I tell people all the time when you're on tour, especially like I was, it's like I learned something new every 10 seconds, and I loved every second of it.
So when you joined the band, you had to learn the band's entire discography.
Yeah.
What was the most challenging song to learn? And is there a song that's the most challenging to play? So maybe there's a song you know it inside out, but you really have to pay attention while you play. Maybe there's no crazy time signature changes or anything, but any songs that are challenging either to learn or to play.
Um,
Come
well,
on, something's challenging. What is it?
yeah. Okay, so I'll just start with like live first because I learned the whole catalog. We don't play a lot of those either, but Miss America is kind of a mouthful live. It's in 6/8, which is different from everything else and four or whatever. Um, but I will say I don't play this one live, but Beautiful You from the first record has got some turns in it that will stump you. Um, Out of My Face was kind of a mouthful to learn at first until I can get my head wrapped around the it was the post chorus, I think after the second chorus or something, or the first chorus. But like there's some weird turnarounds in that song too. So yeah, Out of My Face was weird to learn. And then Miss America's a mouthful to play live if you're not ready for that one. Um, and then Beautiful You is kind of a tough one. So
So you joined the band in 2021. This is during the pandemic. The pandemic decimated all these industries, the restaurant industry, the airlines, and the music industry. I mean, the live event industry just fell apart overnight. How did the pandemic affect your career as a musician? So yes, I know that it was during the pandemic that the opportunity presented itself with Saving Abel. So that's awesome. But how did it kind of affect you at the peak of the pandemic where things were in lockdown and it was, nobody knew if you would ever play a live show again. It was pretty bleak at one point.
it was good for me.
Yeah.
It forced me to lock myself in a room and practice a lot, which was good, which ended up being incredibly beneficial. I bought some recording equipment because at the time, a lot of musicians were buying recording equipment to work from home, essentially. So I did it too. I jumped on the bandwagon and I bought an interface and some mics and a laptop and like really pushed myself to like record. And I got to hear lots of things in my playing that I didn't know were not good, So I got it, fixed my timing issues. It fixed all kinds of stuff.
And is that
So,
where musicians send you their songs, and then you would record your drums and send them back?
yep. So I got to do that. I taught myself how to record. I taught myself how to like play better in the studio, So like I pretty much prepared myself for joining that band. Like it was everything I needed. So when I went in to record with them, it was like I've already been doing this for like a year straight.
And did the period of a year to 2 years where there were lockdowns and there weren't any live events happening, did that period where you can't play any concerts, did that make you really appreciate now once the lockdowns have lifted and then you were able to get back out on tour and play lots of shows? Does it make you appreciate the shows even more?
Absolutely. Yeah, because I thought it was gone. I mean, we all did. So I mean, like I told you before, I was going to be doing it anyway. So I just was like, well, I guess this is our life now. I guess I'll go record drum covers or something. And I mean, God, it was awful. Like I'm embarrassed because I would post some videos and I'd be like, what is, I look at it now and I'm like, what is that wonky shit, or whatever. Or like, I'm super hard on myself. But I will say this, I look back at videos from that time period and I'm like, man, I was really going for it. Like I was really playing, like, so I'm super grateful. But at the same time, I was like shocked, just like the rest of the world.
So a lot of people struggled with their mental health during the pandemic because of the isolation, the uncertainty. Is that something that affected you at all?
Yeah, later, like during the pandemic, no. But it was like this weird, like it affected me later. Like I didn't start having mental health issues until like later.
Like
But no,
2023, 2024, kind of like the tail end of.
yeah, like 22, 23 is when I started like, I couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And because I'm like one of those people that have to like constantly search for things to correct, I was constantly, and I still do, was just constantly trying to figure out why is it like this? Like, why am I thinking like this? Why is this so damn hard on me? Like I don't understand why this is presenting a problem.
Is it
So
like an existential angst? Like, is it trying to find meaning in everything? What is it that you think affected you most?
it was I didn't really have a whole lot of friends growing up. Because I went to so many different schools. So it was mainly just people. Like I had so many people around me all the time now, like being in that band, like it like quadrupled the amount of people that wanted to hang out with me and like wanted anything to do with me. So I was like, I couldn't figure out if they were my friends or like, should I trust this person or like, because I was just used to having my little friend group there in Nashville and just being cool with everybody. But then all of a sudden it just like opened up this whole new world to things. And I didn't, being, from, middle of nowhere, Mississippi, I didn't know how to deal with that stuff. So like I had to really like focus on my mental health there, and I still do, man. I wasn't even self-medicated until recently, so yeah, it was man, this like mental health has just been freaking awful. So but that I'm not discouraged, and I'm not playing the victim here. I'm just saying like, hey man, it gets really hard.
Yeah,
So
I can relate to what you're saying because I before the pandemic I would host lots of events. So open mic nights, karaoke competitions, personal growth, networking, all that stuff. And I remember having a feeling where, I'm in a big busy event with hundreds of people and I know most of them, but I'm not really friends with any of them. And I always I had this thought that man, there's nothing sadder than being in a crowded room and feeling alone. Like you're not even isolated at home alone. And it's like, well, yeah,
man,
obviously you feel lonely because you are alone. But
yeah,
being in a crowded room and feeling like you don't have any friends there and not connecting with them, that was like the ultimate, it's like how can you feel alone when you're in that social setting? But that's how I
dude,
felt at sometimes.
yeah, and like I'm like that all the time. Like I am so awkward sometimes, and um, God, it felt like, and it still feels like this. I guess the best way to describe it is you get to the pool, everybody's around the pool because it's hot and everybody wants to be in it, everybody wants to be around it, but then you're the only one that seems to get your hands tied behind your back and kick to the bottom of it. And as you're like kind of drowning and going backwards, everybody's like pointing at you and judging you and laughing at you. And it's like I struggle with that for a while. And I will say this too. You're not alone if you feel like that. But I had to reach out for help. I have had so much anxiety about everything that like I was told that I have an anxiety disorder because I was always kind of a worry wart around some of my friends, but they were just kind of like, it's just the way, whatever. No, man, I found out that I had an anxiety disorder, and I had, because I had an abandonment issue. So it made me like, you know, well, my God, I don't have any friends. I thought I don't understand why we're not friends. I don't understand. And it's like, that's an attachment issue. You have an abandonment issue. You're scared everybody's going to leave you all the time. So I had to cope with that. And I'm being honest about it, because people need to feel like people need to hear that stuff. And if you are going through that, like you're not alone, you just need to address it and be serious about it.
So, if some of our listeners right now are currently struggling with anxiety or depression or loneliness, do you have any advice that might help them overcome that? Is there anything you found that's worked for you, whether it's exercise or, counseling or anything?
Yeah, definitely seek a therapist. Like you can find them. You just got to find the right one for you. I did that. I went to therapy a lot. If it comes down to it, and you got to get medicated, that works wonders too. I didn't realize that till later on in my late 20s. Medication does work. You just have to know how to deal with it. Um, find things that help you figure yourself out. So like goes all the way back to me watching tapes. I watch lots of VHS tapes because it makes me alone, and like, it helps me cope with things alone. And if I get to focus on something. So same with bread making. I like making bread, because I'm alone and I'm doing things with my hands and it's like quiet. I didn't know how to be quiet. Um, so, you know, yeah, I would definitely say go get checked out, turn your phone off, Get away from social media for a little while. If you're a musician, don't compare yourself to anybody else. You got nothing to prove to nobody. If they like you enough and they like your plan, they're going to ask you to play for them. Just straight up, if you're into that kind of thing. But yeah, so just be sure that you know yourself. Go take a personality test. Find out things that help you, with that, or find out, ways to improve yourself. I'm constantly trying to improve myself every day, whether it's like trying to figure out how I can be around other people, definitely read the room. You can feel a vibe and read the room. If you got to bounce, you got to bounce. Just read the room and don't put yourself in situations that make you feel uncomfortable. Don't force yourself to be in situations that make you feel uncomfortable. If you don't feel like being around the public today, go find a movie. Pay your bills online. And then when you're ready to go out, you can go out. Because I was a total hermit for a little while until I figured out everything. So, and I'm just telling you, like, I go back out now, like I go hang out with people, but there was a point in time in my life where like I didn't even want to leave the house. So
That's some good advice. I have something to raise our spirits back up here. I have some kind
sure.
words sent in from Saving Abel guitarist Scott Bartlett. So Scott says, there's simply no denying his prowess on the skins, from technique to feel to independence, tempo, meter, all of it. My favorite part of playing slash touring with Dave was watching him grow as a man. I never had to worry about his show or his abilities. I got to watch him learn the ropes of being in a national touring rock band and develop as a man in that environment. He ended up being one of my favorite people ever. I really miss touring with him and sharing the stage with him. So that's from Scott.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Uh, Scott was a big help. Like Scott got to watch from a distance, and he'd always like casually kind of like nudge me, you know. So, um, sorry, that just like gotta give me like a second. This is a lot to unload.
Gotcha in the feels. That's okay. It's, you mentioned at the start of this interview that sometimes it's hard to accept compliments. It's basically, some people go days, weeks, months, years without ever hearing kind words. So it can be overwhelming sometimes, right?
Totally, yeah. And that's another thing, man. Like, check on people. You know, call them sometimes. Check on them because you don't know who's like suffering. I still try to do that as much as I can. Um, my friends mean a lot to me, so yeah. But all of those guys, and they all like, Scott, all of those dudes, like they had a way of like teaching me without telling me. Like they would sometimes it would just be just as simple as like a giggle. Like I would say something, they would be like, "Oh, really now?" And you're like, read the room. That probably means I shouldn't do that, or I probably shouldn't say that. Like I do not to this day, like I didn't understand meet and greets. I'm like, why are we doing this? Like and they taught me like it's all right, dude. Like come over here and shake their hand. If they like your band, it's okay. They don't view music like you view music, you know. So I will say I learned a lot from those guys. So I appreciate that, Bartlett.
So they found a way to help you without preaching, just to kind of organically guide you in the right direction.
Yep, yep. And golly, I learned so much too, just by that, because they told me when I first got on the bus, it's really funny. They said, anything that you're about to do or you've done here, if you think that's a mistake, we've done it like 10 times worse. So there ain't nothing that you're going to do that's going to scare us. Because, by the time I got on the bus, those partying days were over, like they were dads and they were just slowing down on some things, they were all cool, so they were just watching me sometimes. Some of the guys said it was comedic relief because things that I'd be concerned with, they were like, what? Why is that even a problem? Like, because I was so like, it has to be perfect. It has to be right, just super OCD about things. So it made me chill out a good bit, even in my daily life. Like when I'd go back out and in Nashville, be around people, like it helped me like feel more comfortable in some settings,
So let's talk about the live event aspect of Saving Abel. So for our listeners that have been with us for the last hour and a half, they're going to go, they're going to listen to Saving Abel's music. Maybe they're going to check out some music videos on YouTube. What can our listeners expect if they ever see Saving Abel in concert? What is that experience like?
Um, it's loud. That band is real loud. So it's loud, wholesome, I guess. Like,
In what way?
well, like Jared, like, if you give him a second to talk, he'll crack a dad joke or something. And it kind of like lightens the mood a little bit. And then you get hit with the heavy again, as soon as it's like, it can be very, uplifting to see them, because of his like banter on things, like he kind of makes Saving Abel. I think I'd always heard like from the guys in the band that like they were the people's band, the band for the working man, So when you go see them live, it's like, hey, I know you've had a hard day all day long at work, but we're here to help your day. We're here to make sure that you have a good time tonight. And like we want to let you know, like if you're struggling with something, you're not alone. We're gonna have a good time. I promise.
So there's like a great duality between the heavy aggressive music and then, the banter between and
Yeah.
the storytelling and those things.
Yeah. Like the best term I could say, like, I don't know, like if you're from the South, you would understand this, but like Saving Abel is just a bunch of good old boys. Like they're a bunch of like dudes from the South that like didn't really have much. And then they started touring in a band and they kept that vibe going, like with their crew, they're always really nice to the crew, um, just really like makes you feel at home. It makes you feel accepted. That's the one great thing about that band is they've always made you feel accepted.
When you look back at the last 3 years with the band, what are some of the highlights that stand out to you?
Um,
Maybe
I
some of the big
probably,
festival gigs or the
yeah,
hangouts or
we played this festival one time called Blue Ridge Rock Festival, and it was like with like Mudvayne and like
oh, I
dude,
love Mudvayne.
man, it was like Seven Dust and Candlebox. And I remember like listening to those bands when I was growing up, and I remember sitting down behind the drums and there was more people than I'd ever played in front of in my life. And it wasn't like there's a picture of it somewhere, but that was like in the middle of the set. By the time we finished the set, the whole right side was full, getting ready for the next band. And then like this had filled up. Like the picture is only like half, maybe almost three-quarters of the field. By the time we got done playing, all of it was full. And I just remember like going, dang, that's a lot of people. Like, and then I looked over to my right and I seen everybody that I'd been listening to, like the singer from Seven Dusts, John Witherspoon was like watching us, and the singer from Candlebox was watching us. And I was like, dang, like, and then I looked over here to my left and Theory of a Dead Band guys were rolling by. And I remember listening to them when I was a kid. And like, and then right after we got done playing, we went over there in a tent with them and hung out and played a acoustic set with them. And I was like, just, I don't know, it was like a fever dream for a second, like this is all happening, that's the first time I'd been around bands like that, like big bands, and it was just like the drummer from Gojira's drum set was like behind me. I remember turning around, looking at it and going like, dang, that thing's way bigger in person, And what was really nice about it was like some of the old crew members that had worked for Abel or around Abel, they were all there. So it was like a big warm welcome. Like all of them were like, it was like the camaraderie of everybody like remembering each other was really nice, So that was cool. I'd say Blue Ridge was pretty cool. And then there's been a handful of other moments where um, I've shown up to the stage and sat down behind the drums and looked out, and there'd be, you know, thousands of people in front of me. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. This is my life. And what do you know? I get to do it again tomorrow night, So that was always cool. Like, I guess.
When I was 18, I went to see Mudvayne in Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
and there was this little unknown trio that was opening, and it was 3 Days Grace. So this is before they were big. And,
Yeah.
once they got big, they added another guitarist. They've been a four-piece forever. So this little trio opens, and I thought they were awesome. And then it's Mudvayne. And then maybe 8 months later, I Hate Everything About You comes out, and they've been one of the biggest rock bands, for however long. 3 Days Grace has more number one rock singles than any band in human history.
I didn't know
They
that.
they have I forget what the tally is now. I think it's 18 number ones. Like if a band has one number one, it's unbelievable. They have more than a full album's worth, not just of hits or top 10 hits. They've gone to number one, I believe it's 18 times on the Billboard Rock charts, which is ridiculous.
That's impressive. I like those guys. We played a show with them in Canada actually one time. That was really cool. I got to hang out with them. They're really nice. And I saw them again in like Denver, I think. We were like hanging out with them, and the singer Matt like knows Jared because he was in My Darkest Days, and they used to go out with Saving Abel all the time. So it was like really cool, like watching their singer like talk to Jared and like they were, talk about things, and I thought that was really cool to see. He like ran up on our bus. We were in Canada and like Matt just come running up on the bus and Jared was like taking the trash out or something. And he like ran on the bus and gave Jared a big hug. And I was like, there's the singer. Like, why are you on the, that's cool, and then he left. Like, that was a cool moment.
What's funny is the biggest show that I ever played. So I'm a guitarist and a singer, but way back, this is, I don't know, over 15 years ago, we opened for My Darkest Days at a free festival in Ottawa called The Exhibition. So that's funny. That's like my favorite, my biggest moment was opening for My Darkest Days way, way, way
Yeah.
back in the day. So it's kind
Yeah,
of
sure.
funny.
That's
Um,
cool.
if you had a magic wand and you could request anything on your rider before shows on tour, what would you slide into your rider? I remember hearing J Lo needs everything white. She needs a room where the couch is white, the carpet's white, the drapes are white, everything's white. You hear the Van Halen story where no brown M&M, something like that. What do you put in your rider if you can just have anything in there?
I already have everything I like in my rider. Uh,
Just VHS tapes and shots of whiskey.
oh, well, man, I'm a man of, you don't have to, it don't take much to impress me on that stuff. I just got a little bit of yogurt, some bananas, maybe some peanut butter M&Ms if I'm feeling like a sweet tooth. But like, I guess if I could have anything on my rider, that's
I was
like,
gonna say this is the least rock and roll writer of all time. What else would you
oh
add to
yeah,
it?
no, I'm boring.
Just give me a ham sandwich.
Yeah, like that's kind of the way we are. Like we're real chill about it. I don't know. I guess in my early days, like, man, put a pack of smokes on there. Like I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, but yeah, back then it was like, I don't know, put me some cigarettes on there and maybe a bunch of peanut butter M&Ms and I don't know. Like, but now I don't know, man. I've pretty much got everything on there I need. I just need my yogurt and my bananas to get me through the day.
That's funny. Yeah. All I want is almonds and tofu or something. What
Yeah, like
what would you say are the best parts and the worst parts of being on tour?
the best part is I get to play the drums every day, like in front of people, and hopefully they enjoy the show. And I get to do what I love. Like I told you before, I was probably gonna be doing it anyway, so I get to do it times 10. So that's cool. The worst parts of being on tour is it's really lonely. It's like way lonelier than you think it would be. I do like sleeping in my bunk, that's nice. But like, dang, after 3 weeks of sleeping in your bunk, you just kind of like you feel isolated sometimes because after 2 weeks, everybody gets done, they're all out of things to talk about for a little bit, you know.
You keep
So
hearing the same jokes and the same stories.
yeah, and it's just, first it was a big chuckle, and now 3 weeks later you say the same joke, and I'm like, cool, I'm going to bed, buddy. Like, it becomes this, it's like Groundhog Day. But like I don't ever get tired of it, especially like if I know I'm going out and I'm prepping, it's a lot of hard work to prep, but then like shoot, as soon as that bus leaves, it's like, yay, we're doing it again, and that's what's cool about it. But I'd say probably the downside to touring is just you get isolated sometimes, unless you got like a bad driver or something. That's pretty rare. If you got a driver that's pretty bad on the brake pedal, that it gets a little annoying.
So when you're playing live and you're in the middle of the Saving Abel set and you kick into the band's biggest hits, so The Sex Is Good or Stupid Girl or 18 Days or Addicted, um, or Drowning, when you play those songs, what's the reaction from the crowds? Is there like an extra level of pick me up that happens? Are they singing along? What's it like? Paint a picture for our listeners.
Yeah, they get real loud, uh, which is cool.
Shit
Like
gets turned up.
yeah, I get turned up. Like, uh, we don't play the one song anymore. We don't play the "Sex Is Good" song anymore. That plays after the show when we're leaving. When we're,
Okay, they play it
when
on the
we're
PA.
Yeah, they just play it on PA. Like when we shut the show down, that plays.
Is there a sex boycott? What's going on here?
No, we're old.
You're over it.
Yeah, like everybody's got kids and stuff. I don't be like
It's
that
more of
band
a
was.
it's more of a PG-13 show now.
Well, not only that, like they'll tell you straight to your face that's not what they wanted to be anymore. Like Jared says it all the time. He's like, oh, man, I was 23, 24 years old. That was just a part of my life, whatever. Like it's just not part of my life anymore. That's the good thing about making music and making art is like you get to grow as a person too, but I'd say yeah, they get a little louder. uh we don't end with the big hits anymore though, so um but yeah, I'd say they get a little louder. I like watching them mess the words up. That's fun.
Is that where you turn to the crowd and you're like, all right, you sing, when you forget the words, you just hope the crowd knows it.
No, I just giggle at them. Like sometimes they'll like get half the chorus right, and then it just goes from like I'm singing the chorus correctly to like I'm like you don't know it.
It's not
And
easy
that
out there for the singer.
yeah, like I mean he forgets his words sometimes too, and I laugh at him. But like now watching the crowd be like super pumped about it, and then all of a sudden they kind of mess the words up. Like
You realize they only know half the chorus or like the na
yeah.
na na parts with no words.
Yeah. Or like if you play Addicted, they sing the guitar line.
Mm.
Like like after the last right before the lick, before it goes back into the verse part or whatever, when he goes like right at the end of it, they sing the guitar lick. So they'll be like, yeah, like they sing the along with the part until it lands on the verse call and response part. So when they go me, when you're loving me at the end, they're like, when you loving me, yeah, they like stretch it out, like you can hear them stretch it out,
They're
which
taking
is
full
fun.
full liberty on that song.
Yeah, they sing the guitar line with it, so that's always been funny too. Or like sometimes there's some guitar parts they'll sing, which is pretty cool. So that's fun. But yeah, I mean, I'd have to say like when you're playing a song that a lot of people know, they get on down, I guess.
When you look down at the set list, is there a song that you're most excited to play? Like you look down and song number 7, you go, oh man, can't wait till we get to that song.
Yeah, it depends on the night, man.
It changes.
Sometimes it does. Like, no, I'd have to say like my favorite is the first. We play about 5 songs in a row before Jared says anything. So like the first 3 or 4, I'm like, those are burners. You know what I mean? So I'm pretty stoked to play those. The middle of the set, my my eyes and ears are kind of on. They're open. So I'm trying to I'm like, okay, cool. There's no technical difficulties. Like I told you, man, I've got anxiety. So like, I'm like, okay, everything sounds good. The drums sound good. Everything sounds all right. Okay, monitor dude's cool. Like techs are cool. Like I'm kind of, looking around and making sure everybody's cool by that point. And then I get a sense of relief on the last 4 songs. So like the first part of the set, all bangers. I don't care what's going on. I'm just there to have a good time and hit play as hard as I possibly can. The middle section, I'm like, okay, we sound pretty good. The crowd's reacting pretty good. The last 4 songs, I know we're getting to the end. So I can kind of, and I'm already warmed up by then. So I'm kind of relaxing and stuff. So it gets better towards the end. So it's really awesome at the beginning. The middle is my check in part. The end is where I'm like, okay, it's almost over. We're just going to lay back and, let her eat.
Hypothetical question. Let's fast forward 50 years into the future or 100 years into the future where most of today's music has disappeared. If you could have just one Saving Abel song still be around in the future, what song would you choose to best represent the band? It doesn't have to be a single, but just for you, what represents the band?
Man, that's a hard one because there's 2 of them that I know that like sound when
All
I
right,
hear
you,
them.
you get 2 songs, just two.
All right.
Two.
Oh, cool. First record, the song called "She Got Over Me." That's a pretty good one. It's got a cool bridge in it. And then third record is a song called "Parachute." Those were not singles at all, but they're like to me, that's what sounds like Saving Abel when I hear it. Other than Drowning, obviously, like that's a big single, but I'll just hit you with some ones that you don't know.
So we have, for the last time, some kind words sent in here. And this is from another monster drummer. This is from Paul Crosby, the drummer for the
Yeah.
platinum selling band Saliva, as well as his new band Cold Words. And
Yeah.
this is what Paul has to say. He says, I first met Dave when he became the drummer for Saving Abel and instantly connected with him. He's an incredible drummer and a great human being. No matter what band he is jamming with, he has a natural talent for knowing exactly what each song requires, and he executes it flawlessly. I am glad to have him as a friend, and his drumming inspires me to keep working on my own skills. So it's platinum drummer Paul Crosby, Saliva and Cold Words.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, Paul's a vibe, dude. Like I
He's a
remember
vibe. I like
he's a
that.
vibe. Yeah, like I remember there was this one moment. So we all played this festival together. It was Scott Stapp, Saliva, Tantric, Abel, and then I can't remember the rest of the bands, but like it was all of us there that night, right? So, and Greg Upchurch from Three Doors had played with Puddle of Mud for a while, so he was touring with Paul like way back in the Saliva days. And Greg texted me and was like, "Hey, I'm coming to your show in Oklahoma because he lives there." I was like, "Oh, awesome!" Not only is like one of my friends, but like one of my heroes is showing up. Like, dang, this is awesome. So I got him on the back or whatever and around, and we was all out there talking or whatever. And right before Paul was getting ready to walk up on stage, and I went over there and tapped Paul on the leg. I was like, "Paul, somebody's here to see you." And he turned around and looked, and it was Greg. And he was like, "Oh man!" And it like it felt so awesome to reunite those 2 guys that hadn't seen each other in years. Like watch them, like conversate was really cool. And I'll send you the picture of us. But we all got a big picture that day, and that I think that's kind of where we all became buddies, like really became like cool. But man, yeah, thanks, Paul. Like Paul's always been super cool, and I love his drumming. Like those the not the first record, that was another guy, but the second and third, well, maybe even the fourth. But Back into Your System, I steal licks from that record all the time. Like, so thank you, Paul.